Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Good afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on when you are watching this as a recorded show or listening live right now. This is Peter Robbins, and the show is Meanwhile Here on Earth. And I have not been on in several weeks as a live personage, but we've been rerunning shows because I was down with a really nasty respiratory infection. Now completely deceased due to the miracle of antibiotics and back to being my old obnoxious self. It is now May, it's spring. It's even beautiful up here in central New York State, although it's still too cold at night. No monologue tonight. We have a special guest coming to us from Beverly Hills, California, and author of several books, one of which is going to be a main focus for this evening. Born and raised near Asbury Park, New Jersey, Dan Harary, which rhymes with Ferrari, which he does not have, but may someday, is now a longtime resident of Beverly Hills, California, and is best known for his 40-plus years in Hollywood as a, keep on that page, Peter, as the an entertainment industry publicist and as the owner of the boutique Asbury Public Relations Agency. During the course of his long PR career, Dan has worked with hundreds of famous celebrities from the fields of film, TV, rock, and pop music. In 1970, Dan and his father, an electronics engineer for the United States Air Force, had a major UFO sighting in New Jersey where he grew up. Following his dad's death in 2017, Dan recalled that encounter and was inspired to write an original science fiction novel entitled After They Came. The book has been embraced by many leading members of the global UFO research community and UFO media communities. Dan also experienced two other UFO events. In 1996, high in the sky above the Lancaster, California desert, he saw a large white ball of light quickly travel from one end of the sky to the other, then stop, then reverse its course by returning to its point of origin. Not something you forget. And in 2008, while spending a weekend at James Gillian's ECETI Ranch in Washington State during a UFO conference, Dan and hundreds of other attendees witnessed a bright lime green UFO suddenly appear overhead, blink its lights on and off, then disappear. Dan is a longtime member of the Los Angeles chapter of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. In addition to After They Came, Dan is also the author of a 2022 Hollywood memoir entitled Flirting with Fame. A Hollywood publicist recalls 50 years of celebrity close encounters, which was covered by major media outlets across America, including Newsweek, the New York Daily News, the Village Voice, the Los Angeles Times, the Hollywood Reporter, and the LA Weekly, among other publications. To read more about Dan, please see his very well organized and really interesting website, Dan Harary, Harary, author.com. And Dan Harary, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Meanwhile Here on Earth tonight.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. Just one thing you mentioned, my dad worked for the U.S. Army, not the Air Force.
Don't mind me. I read Army and I said Air Force. That's dyslexia and a predisposition for the Air Force, maybe. To get started, you had contacted me about your book and then sent me a copy, and I read it. And I read it in a wonderfully, for me, kind of science fiction context. given that it is a science fiction title for sure, which was during a UFO conference called the Ancient Mysteries Conference aboard a Norwegian line cruise ship, one of those science fiction monster motherships with a zillion people on it, to and from Bermuda. And it really caught me off guard. I have never read a science fiction book like it, and I was unprepared, as I mentioned to you when we chatted a few days ago, for the unrelenting positive aspects of the characters, all of the decent and good things that happened. It's almost the exact opposite of Independence Day in every way possible. The aliens are the anti-Independence Day creatures. They are good and thoughtful and caring in all respects. Did you read much science fiction as a kid?
No, actually, no, not really. I've seen all the movies. I'm a child of the movies.
Yeah.
When I was little, I saw Hard Day's Night and Help by the Beatles in the theaters. I saw an Elvis Presley movie or two with my mom when I was a little kid. Must have been the late 50s. I was probably 3 or 4. I'm something of a child of the movies and TV. I have read a lot of books, but honestly, my favorite books, Peter, are biographies. I love reading biographies. But what you said about the opposite of Independence Day, that's exactly what I was going for in my book. In my book, After They Came, it's about 2 benevolent aliens who come to Earth about 10 years from now. I said it in the near future, so it could be within the realm of possibility when you're reading it. You could think, 10 years is not that long from now,
No.
And perhaps, if you'd like me to, my story in this space really does begin with the 1970 sighting that you mentioned in my intro.
And let's even go back before that for a few minutes. You were born in New Jersey?
I was born and raised just outside Asbury Park, New Jersey. Everyone knows Asbury Park because Bruce Springsteen made it very famous. His first album was called, as we were talking earlier, Greetings from Asbury Park. And as I told you, Peter, when I was in high school, I worked in Asbury Park at a concert hall called the Sunshine Inn. It's long gone. In high school, I was the stage manager and the lighting director at the Sunshine Inn. I used to ride my bike there after school. From age 15, 16, 17, 18, I worked there with my best friend. And we worked with Bruce Springsteen. Before it was even the E Street Band, it was called the Bruce Springsteen Band. Clarence Clemens, the sax player, had just joined. He had just joined the band. The week I worked with Bruce, it was the same week his very first album was released. Wow. So, as I was telling you earlier, I'm something of an idiot savant when it comes to celebrities. I've been close to, met, or worked with hundreds of celebrities since 1972, and it continues to this day. And that's what my first book, which came out last year, Flirting with Fame, is about that. But to answer your question, my parents were from Brooklyn. They met on Coney Island Beach.
Oh.
My dad got a job at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, U.S. Army base in near Belmar, New Jersey, near Asbury Park. And my dad worked there from 1951 to 1996 as an electronics engineer.
Wow.
My dad was a gifted scientist. He was a brilliant scientist. And so what little my brothers and I ever knew about my dad was that he designed and helped to create and produce missiles, radar systems, and drones for the Army. And anytime I ever asked my father what he did for a living, he would say, I helped the United States win the Cold War. That's what my dad ever said about his job. His job was top secret, man. He started out as a GS-5, and just the other day, my mother told me when he left, he was a GS-13, which is pretty high up.
Very much so.
He had top secret clearance. He gave talks at the Pentagon. He once told me he wrote reports that 4 presidents read: Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, and Ford. He said he wrote some reports that they read.
Wow.
He used to go out to White Sands, Edwards, Vandenberg, and Fort Bliss. And there may have been others, but my mother said he used to travel quite often to watch his inventions, essentially, and then he would give the specs to the contractors. And then he'd go out to White Sands and watch his drones flying around in the sky. So that's who my father was.
Asbury Park, after after Bruce, is strongly associated with his legendary prowess as a musician. That's an interesting Freudian slip. But years before, turn of the century, Asbury Park was one of the great vacation capitals of the East Coast and the home of a number of those wonderful, insanely large white wooden hotels. And when I was a very little boy, I'm not even sure if any of them were still left when you were a kid. There may have been a few. But when I was really small, maybe 5 or 6, my grandparents, my dad's parents, vacationed in Asbury Park when I was young. And I remember once somehow being brought out there and spending a few days. And, it was the first time I had ever seen a big swimming pool or a building that large or just that reality. But of course, that's now very much part of the past. When you were growing up, small, first, did you have any siblings?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of 3 boys. My middle brother, Bob, is the city engineer for the city of Monterey, California. He goes to meetings, and Clint Eastwood sometimes walks in because it's right next to Carmel. Oh. So my middle brother, Bob, is a brilliant engineer. He got my father's brain.
Huh.
My little brother, who's 8 years younger than me, so he's almost 60. He is head of HR for the city of Orange, California. So my 2 younger brothers, they followed me out to California. We're all out here.
Terrific. When you were a kid, especially if your dad is in the military or was in the military, did you have dreams of being a soldier?
What's really interesting about that question? My dad was the greatest dad you could ever want to have as a father. He was a wonderful man. I miss him every day. I dream about him quite often.
Yeah.
He did not speak much to anyone at all, ever. He was a man of few words, okay? His job was top secret, and man, it was top secret. He never told my mother what he did. He never told my mother. I've been asking her lately, and she said he never talked about work. Where was I going with that? What did you ask me again? Oh, a soldier. Okay, so Peter, here's the thing. In all the years my dad worked at Fort Monmouth, 2 things. Once, I think I was 5, he took me to the base for a 4th of July parade. The only time in my entire life I ever saw his office, I was 5. All I remember is guys beating the drums and playing the trombones with the hats. All I remember is I saw a parade at my dad's office. That's all I remember. And a couple of times when I was in high school, I drove him to work, dropped him off at the front gate at the base so I could have the car for the day when I first got my license. And then I'd pick him up and bring him home. Never went inside. So in my entire life, and he was there for 45 years. I was there once when I was 5. I knew nothing about the military, soldiers, my dad, his work, his office. I knew nothing. I'm a child of rock and roll. Everything for me was rock and roll.
Let me ask you right now then, growing up, and for us really, our venue to the world of pop music was the radio. Do you remember what songs or groups electrified you enough as a kid that you thought, this is important, I want to be part of this world, or I want to know more about it, or it speaks to me?
Both of my parents were, in addition to their professions, and my mother was a teacher, they were both gifted musicians. My dad played the trombone his whole life. He was in marching bands, orchestras, plays. My dad was an incredible trombone player. My mother was, in addition to being a teacher, was a singer, a pianist, a guitarist, an accordionist, a poet, an artist, a playwright, and an actress.
Good
So
Lord.
when I was little, I saw both my parents either together or apart on stages. For most of my childhood, they were on stages. From the age of 7 to 10, my mother wanted me to play the piano because she played the piano. So from 7 to 10, I was a classically trained pianist, 7 to 10 years old. And I was very, very good. Looking back, I used to give recitals. But, when you're 7 to 10 and your parents are godlike and they tell you play the piano, okay, mommy, you play the piano, because that's what here's what happened. Well, and from up until the age of 10, of course, when the Beatles were on WABC radio in the car with my mother or father, I would turn it up and listen to Help and Hard Day's Night and all the wonderful, wonderful Beatles songs. But I only have one Beatle album. My mother bought me a Beatle album when I was 8. I listened to it once, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they're pretty good. I also saw them on Ed Sullivan. My mother said, Danny, come here. I think you'll like this. And I watched them play Ed Sullivan the first time. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. I was 8. No, let me think, 64. I was 7.5, Peter. So, I didn't quite get it. I didn't quite get it. Now we come to the year 1966. I'm 10. Who came on
great
TV?
Year.
Who came on TV? The Monkees. Okay, the Monkees came on TV. I saw the very first episode on a black and white TV. We didn't even have color. And I looked at that and I fell in love with Mickey Dolenz. And I turned around. I said, Mom, Dad, I'm no longer playing the piano. I am now a drummer. I literally said that from the first episode of the Monkees. They got me practice drums. I took lessons for 3 years, hardcore lessons from some major
Wow.
drum teachers. And for my bar mitzvah, I got a drum set. I have been into rock music since 1966 from the Monkees to this day.
Perfect.
And in 20 years later, I met Mickey Dolenz. And I go, Mickey, I played my drums my whole life because of you. And he goes, cool, man, I hear that all the time. So Mickey and I became friends. We used to have lunch together at Columbia Pictures in 1986. So I met my childhood hero that year.
Wonderful. By the time you were in high school, most kids, even if they, are into aspects of popular culture or music, are not thinking about careers in public relations. What were you thinking about, dreaming about, imagining you might be by the time you were in high school and the pressure was starting to get on to go to college and think about your future and all that stuff?
In high school, my friends and I would look at the prettiest girls in school with the hot pants and the mini skirts, and we would go, God, look at her. She's so beautiful. She'd never talk to me. And that was what we did. We none of us, because we fell in love with all the cheerleaders. We were the hippies. I had the longest hair, literally, in school, long hair. I looked like a Jewish Indian. My father used to call me Shmoloch, the Jewish Indian. I had very, very long hair. All my friends were rock band. We had rock bands. We worked at the Sunshine Inn Concert Hall, rubbing shoulders with Kiss and Bruce Springsteen. We went to every concert that was at Convention Hall, which was the big bands like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Mountain and Chicago and the Eagles. So my life revolved around rock and roll and staring at beautiful girls from afar. That was my life. Now I'm 18. I graduated high school. My father goes, okay, so you're going to go to Rutgers University, because I went there. I said, okay, Dad. I love my dad. I knew nothing about college. I knew no things about the future. I had 0.0 thoughts about my future. My life was rock and roll and staring at beautiful blondes and miniskirts. And that was literally all I had. Suddenly, I'm at Rutgers my freshman year. I had the longest hair of anyone on the entire campus. And I said, what am I doing here? Like, what's going on? I mean, and I was, my mother wanted me to be a dentist. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll be no brain of my own. I guess I'll be a dentist. I'm taking biology and chemistry, and I'm like, what am I doing here? This is that year, my freshman year of college, Peter, is when I realized, okay, I better come up with something for myself, because what my parents want for me to be a dentist, I don't want to be a dentist. That was my year 18 to 19. During that year, my best friend from Asbury Park was going to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. And I used to go to Boston to visit him. And he showed me Boston, and talk about falling in love with the city. And so when I said to my parents, I go, Mom, Dad, I know it's expensive. I want to go to Boston University. I want to study TV and film and theater and advertising. And I'd never said public relations, Peter. That's what's interesting.
Well, you've just sort of summed it up in a way with all of those
media. Let's call it media / I knew that they had a good communication school. I said, Mom, Dad, Rutgers is not for me. I'm not a scientist like you, Dad. I want to go to Boston. I want to be with my friend Steve. We were inseparable from childhood. We were best friends our whole lives. I love Boston. They have a great communication school. That's where I need to be. So they fought bitterly about that. Why? It was very expensive. My dad was not happy. He lost that fight. My mother won. So I went to Boston University, sophomore, junior, senior year. I studied communications, which was advertising, marketing, journalism, TV production, radio production, film production, every single thing, Peter, except public relations. Someone once asked me, Dan, why don't you take a PR class? I go, PR? I go, why would I ever dream in a million years? I would never want it. I didn't know what PR was, to be honest. I just didn't like the sound of it. So I actually said to a friend, this is in the 70s, PR, what are you kidding? I'm never going to do that. I've been a publicist for over 40 years. So that shows you how much I knew at that time. The other side story is Howard Stern was going there when I was there concurrently.
Oh. He and I went to the same high school a few short years apart.
That's funny.
Your very first public relations opportunity, job, so to say, did that happen in kind of a formal way once you had relocated to the West Coast, or did something happen at about that time that brought you into that world of helping promote somebody?
Great question. Okay, so I graduated BU 1978, a Bachelor of Science degree, communications. 78, 79, my best friend and I, Steve, who I mentioned earlier. By the way, today my friend Steve owns the Cutting Room nightclub in Manhattan, world famous nightclub. Lady Gaga was discovered there. My friend Steve literally helped discover Lady Gaga, nothing serious. My lifelong best friend. He did in New York what I did in Hollywood. So let's just keep that in.
Cool.
78, 79, early 80, I worked at the New Jersey Boater. It was a boating monthly magazine on the Jersey Shore. I was the art director for that magazine, my first job out of college. Ask me what I know about boats. 0.0. I had never been on a boat. I think I'd seen a boat on Gilligan's Island. I knew no things about boats.
Perfect
I was the art
choice.
director for a boating magazine. It was a solid year and a half plus. After that year and a half plus, I'm like, my mother goes, why don't you go to New York and be a comedy writer for television and get on Saturday Night Live? That's what my mother said. And I thought, that would be pretty cool. So I took a week off from the New Jersey Boater, which was on the Jersey Shore, and I literally hit the streets of Manhattan. An uncle of mine gave me his office. I had an uncle, gave me an office. So I had a desk and a phone and somewhere to sit. And I called every media company, every TV station. I called everybody I could think of. And I got some appointments, but they were all like, how fast can you type? And how is your shorthand? How's my shorthand? I'm like, what are you talking about? You want me to be a secretary? Right? The last call I made, Peter, on my last day, I called a friend named Stu Zakum, who I knew from Boston University. He worked at Columbia Pictures on Fifth Avenue. I said, hey, Stu, I'm in town. I'm looking for work. You want to have lunch? He goes, I just got promoted yesterday. He goes, why don't you come over here? I think maybe I can get you my old job. I go, really? Peter, I didn't know what Columbia Pictures was. I didn't know about the major movie. I mean, I really didn't. I knew about network TV a little bit. I didn't know about the major movie studios in 1980. I really didn't. I'm 23, 24 years old. I go there to meet my friend. He introduces me to his boss, who literally he was used to work for and was friends with the Warner Brothers. Not like Warner Brothers. He was friends with the Warner Brothers. This guy was probably 100 years old when he was there. He interviewed me. He hired me on the spot. Now I'm working at Columbia Pictures in Manhattan. Well, I had to buy suits. I had to figure out how to get there from the Jersey Shore, which is 4 hours a day on a bus.
Whoa.
I didn't know Manhattan. I'd been to Manhattan countless times as a child, but I didn't know Manhattan as far as how to work there. So I commuted from the Jersey Shore into Manhattan for 4 months, every single day, 4 hours a day. That's 20 hours a week on the bus. And I couldn't take it. I couldn't do it. I was actually shaking. I was shaking. But I worked in the publicity department. I met Brooke Shields and her mother. I knew them. We worked on the Blue Lagoon movie that summer.
Oh, for gosh sakes.
I was friends with Brooke and her mother. Brooke was 15. Her mother used to call her Brookie. Come here, Brookie. Me, Brooke Shields, and her mother watched the Blue Lagoon together in a private screening room, just the three of us. And at the end of that, I said, Brooke, you did a great job. She goes, oh, I was terrible. I hate that movie. I hope no one ever sees it. That movie made Brooke Shields very famous. And Brooke's mother liked me because I was nice to her. And Brooke's mother didn't like anyone. They called her Terrible Terry Shields.
Terry, yes.
Terrible Terry Shields. She liked me.
Quite.
People used to say, how does Terry like you? Everyone else in my office, they feared when she came, that people used to hide, literally hide and close their door. So I only worked at Columbia for 4 months. But Peter, that was like, for me, in retrospect, it was a glimpse behind the curtain. It was the Wizard of Oz moment. I saw behind the curtain of a major movie studio's PR department. And I had that knowledge with me. That fall, by circumstance, kismet, whatever, I had friends in LA who said, come visit. I went to my dad. I said, Dad, I have friends in LA. Should I visit? He goes, schmuck, move there. I said, really? He goes, Beautiful. That's the entertainment business. Just move there. I said, oh, okay. My entire life literally changed when my father called me schmuck, move there. It's a true story. I said, okay. I sold all my possessions. I flew out to LA with my friend Steve. We stayed at my friend's couch for a while. He went back to New York. I've been here ever since. That was October 1980.
Wow. Let's go back to 1970 and the UFO sighting you had with your dad that later, in a way, helped to change your life by becoming an author of a book that's receiving more and more attention right now. Can you tell us about that day and everything that you remember about that event with your dad?
Sure. Going back to the Asbury Park, Jersey Shore area. In 1970, March 1970, I was just about to turn 14. So let's say I was 14 years old. My dad picked me up from school one day in his car. I think it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to drive me home. So my dad and I are driving home, suburban New Jersey, afternoon, March 1970. As we're driving, I look through the windshield above my dad's car. And Peter, I swear this was a huge silver letter V, like Victor, a letter V, craft. Each wing of the V, I'm guessing now, it's been so many years, but I'm guessing about the size of 2 school buses. So each wing was fairly long, maybe 200 or 300 feet above us, but not more than that. So low to the ground, hovering over my father's car, completely silent, no smoke, no propellers, no propulsion, silent, just something you would never see in the real world, completely out of character for reality. And I saw through the windshield, I go, Dad, there's a UFO. Stop the car. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. He stopped the car. My dad and I got out of the car, stood in front of the car, looked straight up, Peter, was straight up in the air. There's this, it looks like one of the pyramids of Egypt, you know, it would be equally incongruous, was above us. And I go, Dad, oh my God, a UFO. Dad, how cool. How cool. Isn't this great? This is so cool, right, Dad? Right, Dad? My dad looked at it, Peter, like he was looking at a head of lettuce in the supermarket. No expression, no curiosity, fear, happiness, sadness, no, zero, no expression of any kind. He was looking as though he were watching his car go through a car wash. And I'm telling you the truth, no expression. Then here's the killer. He looked over at me. He winked at me. My father winked at me and said, come on, kid, let's go home. Okay, get in the car, go home. I go run into the kitchen. We had a rotary telephone, I remember. I called the Asbury Park Press. I said, my name is Danny. My dad and I just saw a UFO. We saw a UFO in the sky. It was of my neighborhood, and it's so exciting. And it was a silver V. And the lady goes, Sonny, I can't talk to you right now. I'm getting hundreds of phone calls about this. We have to go. I can't talk. She said, I remember clearly. We can't talk right now. I have to go. I'm very sorry. And she hung up on me. Nothing ran in the newspaper, Peter, that week. I checked the paper. Nothing.
Interesting lesson right there.
Nothing ever ran. Now, the more amazing part of that story, and you mentioned it earlier, I completely forgot that happened.
Yeah.
For 47 years.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly out of my mind for 47 years.
I can relate.
Now, right? I saw your note in Deb Cobble's book. You had something similar happen to you.
A childhood sighting with one of my sisters, and in my case, I could not handle it. It was too much for me to contemplate, to incorporate into my belief system and my understanding of the universe, and I repressed the memory. I think working very hard to do that, and it was more than 14 years in my case before it emerged. Your memory of this event came back after your father died.
Right, that's right. So
about how long after, out of curiosity?
Okay, so my dad died in April 2017, and in Florida with his second wife. It was within a week of his death. Within a week, I went to Junior's Deli in West LA, and I have to tell the deli part because it's the funny part of the story. I went to my favorite deli in April 2017 to get a pastrami sandwich and think about my dad, just literally to go contemplate and to think about my dad and how much I missed him and loved him. I'm sitting there. I ordered a pastrami sandwich. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. I'm sitting there minding my own business at the table. And Peter, something from above, I call it a beam. Something beamed into my brain from above, like God, spirit, an angel, my father's angel, creativity. Something came into my brain as I'm sitting there, and I saw in my mind's eye, and I watched it, the home movie of me and my dad from 1970 and the V-shaped craft. Peter, I had forgotten it for 47 years. I sat there and I'm watching it and I'm going, holy S-word. I'm seeing something I completely forgot about. It was given to me. It was literally given to me. It was like a gift. It was a gift. It was a gift. Maybe my dad's ghost. I don't know. And I could talk about my dad's ghost. That's my next book, because my dad interacted with me many, many times after he died. That's my next book. But so I had this vision of that sighting. I asked the waiter for a pen. I had a paper placemat on the deli counter. I asked him for a pen. My hand then wrote the following things. Write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character discovers his father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C, and I swear I didn't know what those letters were. And I put my hand away And I looked, and I just said, after they came. I go, ATC, after they came. I go, well, I guess I need to write a book now. It came to me. I ate my pastrami sandwich. I drove home as fast as I could. And every single day, 12 hours a day for the next 8 months, I wrote this book after they came. That's how this book came to me.
I have heard a lot of Genesis stories of how certain creative projects begin, but never one triggered by a childhood memory like that, coupled with a really good pastrami sandwich.
I knew you were going to say that. Maybe the pastrami had something to do with it.
I don't know. I think it's also a Jewish thing. And Jews have been known to argue sometimes to the point of almost violence, although we're much better at talking each other to death than using weapons, about the very best pastrami available. For me, it's Katz's on Houston Street in Manhattan, but it's a long time since I visited any Los Angeles delis, another reason I would like to return to California. So this thing came to you with the outline fully. You knew what you were going to do and you followed through on it. It didn't occur to you at first to do something more traditional, like scary aliens or a great deal of angst or confused signals. And then, they emerge from the beginning as, hi, we're here. We care about you and we want to help you solve your problems.
I've been doing a lot of interviews the last 3 months all over the world. And I did one last week with a bunch of ladies in LA who are channelers, and they're mediums and channelers.
Oh boy.
Wonderful ladies. I'm having lunch with one of them next week. And as I described this, they said, oh, so Dan, you channeled your book. I said, really? They go, yeah, you channeled it. And I said, okay, because you know what, Peter, I did. Paul McCartney dreamed the song yesterday. You know this. He dreamed the song. It was scrambled eggs. Da 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 da, scrambled eggs. He woke up from the dream, wrote scrambled eggs on a piano. Yeah. He played it for John Lennon. He played it for George Martin and George Harrison. He goes, is this something? They go, no, we don't know what that is. He dreamed it. He channeled the song yesterday. I'm not in his league, of course, but do I believe in that? Yes, I channeled this book. It was given to me. Now, benevolent aliens, here's my thinking. Independence Day, War of the Worlds, Mars Attacks, the famous, you'll know this immediately, the famous
Bad Aliens Being Bad.
The famous Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man. Don't get on the ship. It's a cookbook. In modern folklore, certainly in the movies and TV, modern folklore, the aliens come to kill us or eat us.
Usually. You have a Starman every once in a while, but more often than not, they're malevolent.
Or E.T., or the aliens at the end of Close Encounters. Those are the kind ones, but they're very few. The kind ones are far outweighed by the bad ones. So when I'm writing this book, I'm like, I need a lead character who finds out that his late dad, was a scientist who worked for the military and knew about UFOs. Because having just been mourning my dad, and when I had the 1970 movie played, Peter, I realized my dad knew what that was. I truly, in my heart, because why? The look on his face, the wink, and then after he died, here's another part of the clues. After my dad died, I called my mother. She's still alive. I said, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? She said, no. But early on in his career at Fort Monmouth, around 1951 or 52, they took him down deep into the vaults at Fort Monmouth, deep into the vaults. They showed him something top secret. Never tell anyone as long as you live. He came home. She said he was pale and nervous and sweaty. And she said, honey, what's wrong? He goes, I saw something today. I could never tell you. It was top secret. I can never tell you. And my mother said he never was the same after that. Now think about that.
Yeah.
He saw something profound. I personally think he saw some alien technology.
Yeah, or
I don't think he,
artifacts.
I don't think he saw a dead alien. I don't
Yeah.
think they would have shipped it to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. But my dad was a scientist,
Yeah.
and everything where he worked was electronics. Where he worked, Camp Evans.
And with
I
that
think,
security clearance.
I think he was shown some. This is my theory. I can't prove it. My father's dead. I can't prove it. But my gut is that my dad knew about reverse alien technology, having seen or something from a craft. Because when my dad saw a flying V in the sky in 1970 and had no reaction, well, clearly he knew what that was. You or I or any normal person would have been jumping up and down like, we got to call the news. This is so great. How cool. Aliens are real. My dad was like, la da 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 da. Let's go get a sandwich.
He had trained himself and been trained to respond in, I'm sure, many appropriate cases with no discernible response.
He probably saw that. Here's what I think, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I honestly, in retrospect, now believe that Flying V was man-made, military, drone, using reverse alien technology. Because my dad told me a couple of times, I was in on the very start of drones. Before he died, he told me a couple of times, early drone technology, that was me. He did say that a couple of times. I think that thing was a drone. And I think it was created to appear like a UFO, so people would be scared. But my dad, said, we used to spy. He said, I helped build technology to spy on our enemies. So putting all these clues together, I believe that was a military craft that my dad and I saw that day.
I was very moved at the end of the book when you discuss your father. You step away from your role as author, and we learn something about this episode and how it inspired you. But it really touched me that the whole impetus for this book was triggered by the love you have for your father, and in honoring his memory by thinking creatively and informing your narrative with things that were more about your dad than not. In talking about the book, I want to be careful not to have any spoilers, but
Right.
because it's promoted in the liner notes, basically, our protagonist, our main character, our starring person, is on a certain level an everyman whose life has really not worked out at all, with no area that really has worked out.
Right.
And I have a very dark sense of humor, and I worked crisis intervention hotline for many years in New York and spoke to a lot of people who I'm sure, or quite as sure as I can be, certainly were deeply depressed, but a good number who were suicidal, some of them actively suicidal. And it's not a joking matter. At the same time, you open the book with him looking at his life and saying, right, time for me to leave this planet, and developing his plan to end his life, which is a good plan. It looked like one way or another, he wasn't going to make it through the first chapter. And I thought, this is interesting. This is a very interesting device. And again, without hurting the narrative, this man is prepared to overdose, drink himself to death, and drown at the same time. And he's finally succeeded in something. It's about to happen. And it doesn't work out. He is taken at that moment, and then the ride begins from there. Where did you come up with that idea? Because you're walking a very interesting line between I had a friend take his own life a little more than a week ago. It happens, and it's always a tragedy, and you try to make sense of it. But at the same time, there is an aspect of the way that you tell it, and completely appropriate. You know, life is, as we all know, a stew of the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, the scary, the wonderful, all at the same time sometimes. And this was such an original idea, and it could have been macabre or maudlin or icky or uncomfortable, but you used it to launch this character. And for me, just the very last sentence of the first chapter was like, whoopee, here we go. Where did you come up with that?
That's great stuff, man. I was thinking I should read this book, you know. Okay, couple of things. The lead character is based on many aspects of my life, good and bad. Big picture, number one. Number two, and this is very painful to admit, but from the age of 15 to the age of 40, I was clinically depressed, and it was undiagnosed, and I was a depressed person, Peter, for 25 years, undiagnosed. When I turned 40, I went to a psychiatrist, and I said, I can never smile. What's wrong with me? And I told him I stopped. He goes, I am so proud of you for what you've accomplished without medication. He said, Dan, you're like a diabetic that never had insulin.
Oh my gosh.
He wrote me a prescription for Prozac. A week later, less than a week later, wow. I was smiling. And 2 months later, I launched $1 million business and had women falling through the windows. My life literally remarkably changed when I turned 40 and I became undepressed. Okay, so modern day me, plus many, many years of, like in college, I wasn't suicidal to act. I was suicidal in my thoughts. Like, you know, if I killed myself, okay, my parents would cry. You know, my brothers might be upset. Who cares? No one's going to care. I had that ideation. You know, if I leave, who cares? No one's going to care. So I coupled that from earlier in my life to my modern day. Now I'm a successful businessman. I have a wonderful daughter. I have lots of friends. I've been dating women since I became undepressed. But I thought, what if this lead character is based on me, but like in bizarro opposite land of me, of present day me? So I made him a depressed guy whose business failed.
Yes.
He's divorced from his second wife. His first wife he killed in a car accident. I'm divorced, so I plugged some of that in there. I will admit this. It's not something I'm happy about. I have a son. He and I have been estranged for 5 years. We've not spoken in 5 years, not a word. He lives in Alaska, and he knows I love him, and we can't work out our stuff. So in the book, I had this character have two estranged children. Yes. I personally have an estranged son.
Yeah.
So I put all the bad I could clump into the lead character, because who knows better a lead character for me than me, the author. But I didn't want this guy to be the star of the show. I wanted the aliens who come to save him and reveal themselves to the world as benevolent. They're from Pleiades. They're benevolent. They're tall whites. They're Nordics. They're 7 feet tall, long white hair, blue eyes. You know, in the movie, it would be Brad Pitt and Blake Lively. They'd be the man and the woman, two most beautiful humans that God ever created. And they saved this guy's life. They present at Dodger Stadium to the world that we're here. Don't be afraid. We love you. We're here to protect and serve mankind, not like to eat, not to eat men, but to help them. And they say, we have a relationship with this guy. We just saved this guy from going to be our ambassador to mankind. So that's how they present him. They leave. He's at Dodger Stadium. He just was drowning. And now he's the most famous man in the world because he was on live global television. The guy, all he wanted to do was drown on his 70th birthday. He just wanted to be dead. Now he's the most famous man in the world. They take him to meet the president. Now, at the time I wrote the first draft, there was a rumor that Oprah Winfrey was going to run for president in 2017. There was a rumor. And I thought, wow, most people like Oprah. She'd be a very interesting president. She'd be at the least a very empathetic president to have. So my character is named Tamika Winfield. And think Oprah Winfrey. If anyone out there reads my book, the president is Oprah Winfrey. Okay. So she meets this guy. The military takes this guy to meet Oprah, president. And she goes, "Who are you, Jonathan Tuckerman? Who are you? What's going on? What's happening? Why did aliens just save your life? What's happening?" He goes, "I don't have the slightest idea. I don't know anything at all. I'm clueless. All I wanted to do was be dead. I hate my life. And now I'm sitting with the president of the United States." Well, over the next course of the first third of the book, she sets him up at the UN with a team. She reunites him with his estranged children. And the team meet with the aliens once a month. Peter, as you know, you read the book, to solve problems. What do they do first? He asks the aliens to eliminate all nuclear weapons from the planet. And they do. And they do. They melt all the nuclear weapons. So right off the bat, this guy's like, holy heck, who is this John Tuckerman? He's friends with aliens. And over the course of the first year that he's at the UN, they solve famine. They provide clean water. The aliens give mankind billions of dollars in gold to build homeless shelters. They reverse climate change. They give us technology to control and curb overpopulation. They eliminate anger and hatred for mankind, so guns are no longer gone, wars are gone. It's my genie's bottle. It's my utopian version. If I had a wish list, what Dan Harary do with aliens? That's what happens in the first third.
I think, and I'm curious to know if you're even aware of it, in a sense, by taking a character who is not just obscure, unknown, uncared for, but a failure and a cast-off person, in a sense. And overnight, he becomes he becomes the most famous person in the world. In doing so, you've set up something of a meditation on fame and on the weight of fame, on the ironies and the surprises, going from being no one, in quotes, to being, every pop star imaginable and every statesperson and every inspired religious leader all rolled into one. That is a lot for him to handle. And his insecurities continue coming up, understandably, throughout the narrative. Once you started to get rolling on the book, did you already have ideas on how to resolve it? Because I could just see, okay, I'm in the groove now. I'm bringing on another character, and we're solving another problem. And I'm intertwining it with another relationship of a character that's already been introduced to us. You could just go on like that for a prolonged period of time and then say, where do I go now? Or did you have an idea of where your narrative was headed right up to the end of the story when you were early on in the book? As we know, it happens in any number of ways, like any creative project.
That's a great question. I had the first third mapped out pretty well. The first third, just to recap, this guy is drowning on his 70th birthday, hates his life, gets rescued by magnificent aliens from the future, from wherever they're from, in a huge craft that's clearly not man-made. And they present to the world, and they say, here's our guy, we're going to help you. And over the course of a year, they solve pretty much every major problem you could think of. And Peter, at the end of that third, I knew that this guy was going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that was, where do you go? You win the Nobel Peace Prize. And my mother, I think that's my favorite part. My mother's favorite part is the Nobel Prize. So on day one, he's drowning in the ocean. And 1 year later, exactly, he's winning the Nobel Peace Prize, introduced by the president, and he's the most famous man in the world, like you said. That's the first third. I had that in my head because, again, if I had a genie's lamp and I was Aladdin, and instead of 3 wishes, I had 300 wishes, my first wish in the world would be eliminate all nuclear and biological weapons. That would be the first thing I would personally say. I know that I would say that. I wouldn't say I need $5 million in the bank. I would say I want all nuclear gone forever from the planet Earth, and human can't make them again. So it's my genie's lamp.
Where we are going to hold off until we return in 4 minutes with the second hour of Meanwhile Here on Earth with my special guest, Dan Harary. Don't go away.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
It's not just a donation.
It's a warm blanket.
It's a bottle of clean water.
It's a roof and a bed.
It's knowing someone cares.
It's feeling safe.
It's a today that's better than yesterday.
Every dollar you can spare helps so much more than you can imagine. Please, donate now to help people affected by Hurricane Ian. Your support is urgently needed.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
And we are back with author Dan Harary. And before getting started, I just want to read you one of the quotes on the back of his book here. After They Came is a captivating novel of benevolent alien contact, incorporating author Dan Harary's vision of how to solve humanity's most intractable problems in order to create a world of abundance and peace. While exploring the impact of alien contact on the people of Earth, Harary, a skilled writer, offers up a thought-provoking example of identifying just what, in his judgment, really needs fixing. That's from Richard Dolan, author of UFOs in the National Security State, and AD, After Disclosure, when the government finally reveals the truth about UFOs. So we're talking about the book now. The United Nations enters into the story in also a wonderful what-if kind of way as the facilitator. It certainly got a lot of bad rap over the decades, and some of it with good cause. The story keeps developing to a point where we learn something about the relationship of one of the alien characters with our lead character. I don't want to give that away, but how did that come to you? I thought it was completely surprising to me how you drew one of those characters into the relationship with our protagonist.
Okay. So before the break, I had recapped the first third of the book, ending in the Nobel Prize. Second third of the book, Peter, is what you just asked me. I knew that I wanted to tip my hat to my father in this book. And again, I never knew, and even my mother and my brothers, we never really knew exactly what he did. He was a secretive guy, but he had just passed. He was in my heart when I'm writing this book in the first draft. So the first third, I had it. This guy's drowning. He gets saved, and he and these aliens cure every problem, and he wins the Nobel Prize. That alone could have been a book, but that alone was about 100 pages. And I'm like, okay, I'm a third of the way. My goal was 300 pages, So I said, okay, I'm a third of the way there. What do I do now? Well, a little voice in my head kept saying, Dan, if this guy was real and the friend of aliens and solving all these problems and getting all this media attention and the most beloved, most famous man in the world, essentially Elvis, the Elvis of the year 2033, wouldn't people ask him, why you? Peter, I had to think, like, why him? The thought bubble. Why this guy, right? Why him? And I'm like, wow, that's a great question. Why would aliens who are magnificent and benevolent pick this schlub, this loser, this nebbish, this,
and then we learn why.
Character? Why would they pick him? Well, that's the second third of the book. So I had that in my head, and I had in my head, I got to get my dad in there, my dad character in there. So, not to give away too much, but in the second third of the book, the lead character, when he's on the ship with the aliens after a year, he goes, you know what? You guys have been wonderful. Thank you for everything. Why did you pick me? Like he finally thinks, it occurs to him a year later, why'd you pick me? And the lead male alien, Jorthon is his name, he says, hold on a minute. And he gives Jonathan, the character, like a shoebox. It's a piece of technology. It's like a shoebox. And he goes, watch this. You'd call this home movies. Watch this.
Yeah.
So Jonathan is on the UFO, on the craft above the UN, and he's watching home movies. And it turns out he's watching his father from 1963, which is 70 years in the past, testing missiles at Edwards Air Force Base in California. And as his father's a young man, he's surrounded by military brass. You see a sign, Edwards Air Force Base, in the home video. And he's watching, and his father is testing a missile. Well, not to give too much away, but the missile interacts with a small UFO, and Jonathan's dad, on his way home from the base that night, sees the crashed UFO in the side of the road, and there's a little alien creature there crawling out of the UFO, and he's hurt. He's been wounded from the crash. You know, part of me thinks, if you ever like the show My Favorite Martian, remember My Favorite Martian with Ray Walston had the thing?
Oh, yes.
Well, that was one of my favorites. But anyway, so the dad's driving home from the fort, from the Edwards, and he sees this craft glowing, and it's also Superman. You know, let's face it, it's Kal-El. It's Kal-El as well.
Our first alien.
He sees this little alien guy, and he very gently approaches this character, and he sees he's wounded, and most of him is like, oh, I got to bring this creature to the base, you know, at the least they could give him medical attention. And telepathically, the creature says, no, please don't do that. Don't do that. They'll study me. They'll put me in a cage. They'll torture me. Please don't take me to the base. Please don't do that. So he scoops him up, saves him. Then he intersects with his wife, who is the lead character's mom, who happens to be at the motel near Edwards Air Force Base. So the parents, the lead character's parents, 70 years earlier, saved the life of a little alien. They saved his life. They brought him back to life.
And don't tell the folks any more than that, because that was one of the totally out of left field surprises. Toward the end of the book, and we have an inkling that it's coming, there is conflict. And it comes from the Draconians, bad aliens. You handled it in a way that made sense, and not without, some loss, but you create an event in Manhattan to mark our lead character's many accomplishments at a certain number, as time passes. And you use that very positive event as a point to, again, I'm speaking cryptically for good reason, because I don't want to ruin this for people. But you use that backdrop to kind of create the climax of the book. And as somebody that knows and loves New York City, there's a certain amount of real estate damage before things are resolved. It's fairly minimal, but it involves some major structures. And that hurt me very much to think about those buildings that I love in distress. It really is a once upon a time story. It's a fable for our times for me. And where I kept kind of banging my head on it was, I'm not used to reading stories like that. I'm read for my own just enjoyment of reading. I read a great deal of espionage fiction and Cold War fiction, and also biographies, and often of figures from that time. And you forget that it isn't out of the question that good people can come together and accomplish wonderful things. We live in a world that is so increasingly divisive and at its own throat, and divisions between people more and more are cause for real angst, exaggeration, and at the same time, genuine vindictiveness. You've given us something here that is completely antithetical. And I'm going to take a moment here and read another statement by another one of your readers, because it dovetails into my points. Dan Harary's sci-fi novel is an imaginative, futuristic vision of myriad themes currently put forth by those active in the areas of UFO and alien visitation, not all of which are compatible with my own experience and understanding of this important topic, but as written would also be best understood by those familiar with the lore of the genre. The style of the images is in After They Came are presented in such a graphic visual style that with the inclusion of more of the background and historic sources needed by the uninitiated, it could serve as the basis for an entertaining film adoption. That from Travis Walton, author of Fire in the Sky and subject of a film based on his experience by that name. Also the subject of an outstanding documentary, award-winning documentary called Travis, the True Story of Travis Walton. Because you've lived so much of your life in tandem with the film and television worlds, was this part of the rail that you were running on as you were writing? Was it just thinking about writing a book, completing a book, or the natural extension of seeing it brought to the screen at some point if you could accomplish what you were after in completing your story?
I wrote this in 2017, right after my dad died, solely as a creative work, as a tribute to my father's memory. I channeled the basic premise, and it was from God, or God, creative spirit, whatever, whoever gave it to me. I consider that a gift, literally a gift from above. This book was given to me as a gift. I finished this book, Peter, in early 2018 to write it. I spent the next 4 years pitching this book, not as a movie, as a book. Publishers and literary agents all over the world for 4 years. Nothing. No things. Science fiction, we don't handle that. Or aliens, I think we've had enough aliens. I got very, very lucky. In spring of 2022, I pitched it to a company in Milwaukee called Genius Books. And they said, we love this premise, send us the book. It's a husband and wife, Stephen and Leah Booth. I'm very, very grateful to them. They said, here's your contract, let's do it. So that was like exactly a year ago from now.
Wow.
Okay, so I started it in 2017. I finished it in 2018. In 2022, I got a book deal. And last summer, 2022, is when I got the Richard Dolans and the Travis Waltons. And also I got a wonderful quote. She didn't make the cover in time. Kathleen Martin gave me a lovely quote as well. I'm sure you know her.
Very well. A good
So
friend.
As a publicist, I'm like, I got to get my ducks in a row. So that's why I got the book reviews in advance. The book came out March 1st this year, March 1st, just a couple of months ago. That weekend, I was at Alien Con in Pasadena. I gifted my book to Eric Von Daniken. He goes, After They Came. I haven't read this one yet. I go, Eric, it just came out 3 days ago. Yeah, isn't that great? I love that picture so much. So I gifted him that book. I gave Giorgio a copy. I gave Nick Pope, who had given me the quote last year, signed a copy for me. And he and I are supposed to have dinner together next time he's in LA. I met William Henry. I met David Childress. I met Paul Hynek. I met George Knapp. I met Jeremy Corbell. I met, like the Ancient Aliens greatest hits at that show. I met them there. The people, and I had a booth. My daughter and I had a booth. And people would come up and say, After They Came, what's it about? And I'd say, benevolent aliens. Really? And everyone who came, benevolent aliens? And tell me more. So I would tell them the story, and they'd say, okay, and they bought it. One guy came, and I said, benevolent aliens. He goes, I only like evil, violent. He actually said, I only like evil, violent aliens. And he was angry at me. He's like, what? Please, fat. So he walked away. But I sold a ton of books at Alien Con. Now, since March 1st, people like you, George Norrie, Jimmy Church, Jeremy Scott, Dave Scott. I've been doing these podcasts all over the world for 3 months. Everyone's telling me it should be a movie. Everyone's telling me, did I think of it as a movie? No, absolutely. I would never be that presumptuous, nor would I be that hopeful, to be honest. I mean, for me, making this a movie is like me growing hair back on my head, or dating Britney Spears. I don't see those things happening anytime soon. But I do have some leads. See, I've been a publicist. A publicist handles clients and deals with media. I don't know literary agents, really. I've met a couple. I don't know that world, and they don't know me. So believe it or not, all the acclaim I've gotten from around the world with this book, I am right now actively seeking a literary agent to pitch the book to Steven Spielberg, to J.J. Abrams, to Guillermo del Toro, to M. Night Shyamalan. Anyone, I'll make a wish list.
Sure.
And I need an agent. Even though this book is doing remarkably well in every way possible, I need an agent. Now, I met Steven Spielberg. I spent a day with him, nice conversation. That was 13 years ago. I can't send him my book. It's not how it's done. It's just not how it's done. I need an agent, a legit agent.
Right.
So would I like this to be a movie? Yes. Every time my mother calls me, when's it going to be a movie? I go, Mom, I'll win the lottery first. So I don't know. But to answer your question, I wrote this as a book, just to be a book, to be a tribute to my dad. It was a thank you, Dad. I'm trying to give back something to you. Because I think my dad, channeled the book into me to begin with. I really do. And like I said, I've had dreams. He's been in my room as a ghost 3 times. I've had very vivid dreams of him talking to me after he passed. My next book, my Paranormal Life, which comes out in January, you guys showed that cover during my intro. That book is about ghosts and poltergeists and spirits. I've heard angelic voices in my ears several times throughout my life. When I was 5, I fell off a sign, and I believe a gargoyle saved my life because I think I died. I have some pretty cool stories in this one. So that's
a hell of a book cover.
Isn't that a great cover? Don't you love that?
Really?
I know. I love that cover. That took my artist and me 3 months to nail that cover.
Dan, have family members shared their reactions with you about the book? More often than not, if we're related to somebody and they've written a book, we want to like it, we'll tell them nice things. But any insights into the way this has impacted on people that you know, that you love, that you related to?
My 2 brothers enjoyed it. They said they liked it very much. This is actually my 3rd book. They said it's the best thing I've written. This is the best thing I've ever written. Believe it or not, my mother is the biggest fan in the world of this book. She's read it 3 times. Now, she thinks part of me is crazy because she doesn't believe in aliens. So, and she really doesn't know what my dad did, but she goes, your father didn't know about UFOs. What did he know? He just made drones. He didn't talk about anything. There's no alien. Danny, enough with the aliens. 88-year-old Brooklyn woman. God bless her. She's in a wheelchair. But my mother, this has to be a movie. Call your friend Steven Spielberg. So my mother loves this book. It's just remarkable. My friends have enjoyed it. I've been getting emails all over the world, Dan. It's wonderful. It's brilliant. Quotes. Kathleen Martin came. Can I read Kathleen Martin's quote to you? Would that be okay?
Sure.
I have it somewhere.
Absolutely.
This one just came in like a week after it printed, so it missed the back cover. Kathleen Martin. So people, if they know, she's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, and she captured the Betty and Barney Hill story with Stanton Friedman. Dan Harari's brilliant work of fiction, And After They Came, transports readers on a fascinating journey into the not-so-distant future through the eyes of Jonathan Tuckerman, the man who was rescued from his fast track to self-annihilation. Thanks to a giant airship carrying highly advanced extraterrestrials, Jonathan's misadventure propels him and humanity to previously unimaginable heights and presents new, inconceivable solutions to huge challenges. If you are looking for an uplifting page turner, go no further. Kathleen Martin. And that just means the world to me, that quote,
That's a rave. Also, with our lead character, when things start to go right, they really start to go right. He's has to be checked out by a very high-level physician who happens to be brilliant, kind, and absolutely stunningly beautiful. And of course, they fall very deeply in love.
Right, of course.
It's, he still has rough days at the office, but it's, again, if things are going to go well, why not go really well, even with his insecurities that come to the surface? And once again, this is a once upon a time story, and we can simply leave the reality of the moment behind and enjoy it for what it is. Again, I was caught off guard by that and kept waiting for the next shoe to fall, or for somebody to get shot, for God's sakes, and the killing to begin. It was fairly abbreviated when it did happen, and the Draconians, which I thought was a wonderful send-up to name your bad aliens just that.
Right.
I won't say how the fight ends, but I'm glad I was on the winning side in my mind.
Well, I will say this. My first draft, Peter, was happy, 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 happy. The parade scene, and the ending, and I'm not going to say the very, very ending, but yes. that still happened. And my publisher said, Dan, we love your book. Where's the conflict? My publishers last year said, where's the conflict? I go, they're benevolent aliens. Well, you're writing a science fiction book, everything can't be happy, happy, joy, joy. Where's the conflict? I said, okay. So
thank you.
The last year I go, okay, I need some bad guys. I actually Googled races of aliens. I Googled what are the races of aliens? And when I saw Draconians, I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a pretty cool name. And then I thought, in my mind's eye, they're essentially alligators who learned to walk upright, and over the course of millions of years evolved into looking like people. But they're essentially alligators who now look like people. I have them living under the seas around the planet Earth in little pockets under the seas. I have them as a very ancient race of aliens on the Earth that God is a character in my book.
Yes.
I call God they never say God, they call him the infinite creator. And the aliens who come to Earth talk about their father, the infinite creator. So,
yeah,
as Eric Van Daniken always said, that he believes that, of course, there's aliens, but of course there's God. Eric Van Daniken said, of course there's God. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Who made who created the aliens? There had to be a primal source, an original source to create anything that came after. So we have to call that original source God. I called it infinite creator. So I have the infinite creator gave up on the Draconians because they became evil and warlike. So when these beautiful aliens come to Earth in my book, the Draconians get all annoyed, and they see this Jonathan character becoming this hero, and they're like, we have a bone to pick with the infinite creator. He put us here a long time ago. He forgot we're here. So they have words with the beautiful kind aliens, and they have some battle scenes, as you know, and they have some conflicts together. I had to inject that to get my publisher to sign off on the book. So And in retrospect, I'm glad he pushed me. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted happy joy. I'm like, what? I was depressed most of my life. Why can't I be happy? Why can't I be happy? No. I'm a publisher. I've done hundreds of books. You got to have conflict, Dan. That's where the draconians came from. They came from my publisher, quite frankly.
That really makes all the sense in the world, though.
Yeah.
And one of the things about literature is not only can it take us out of ourselves as readers and thrust us into a new world, but it gives the author a chance also to make things right, at least allegorically, with their own life and timeline. And good for you for acting on that impulse. And at the same time, I'm glad that there was that dynamic tension as we got toward the end as well. And the parade was very haunting to me and so evocative of what it referred to in terms of American history.
Right.
And on it went from there.
Right. I thought I nailed the parade. I was living that in my mind's eye, Peter. I was seeing it, not that I'm a great artist, but great artists or artists in general, when they're in the zone, either they're channeling or they're on a high, they'll look at a clock, and then for me, I'll look at a clock and I'll look, and again, it'll be 8 hours later, I forgot to eat lunch. So when I was writing the parade scene, I was seeing it and putting myself there, like every view, where would the cameras be? What cars would be there? Who would be in the parade? What's going to happen at the parade? I was seeing it, and I looked up, it was 8 hours later, I remember on the clock.
Well, that comes across very strong because I was seeing it too. I know those streets well, and the angles that we would have seen things from, and the parade route, etc. You made it very real.
Thank you. It's very sweet. No, thank you. It means a lot to me, really.
Well, it's simply stating a fact. At this point, I mean, your life and career continue to roll along. Can you see yourself writing more in the realm of science fiction in the future, or you feel that was your science fiction novel and there's other worlds to conquer as you move forward as a writer and as a public figure and a publicist as well?
That's a really great question. So this is my third. All right. So my first book was called Flirting with Fame, about my Hollywood career. My second book, which I don't really talk about because it's embarrassing, but my second book is called Carrots, and it's about my history with sex addiction. I was a sex addict for 20 years after my divorce. And I'm not ashamed. I'm not proud. I'm not ashamed. But it's something that I lived through and came out on the other side. And I have been speaking to some groups about this book, about overcoming my sex addiction. It didn't get picked up by the media. It didn't sell many copies. But it is my second book, and I don't want to forget that it exists. After they came to my third book, My Paranormal Life is my fourth book, comes out in January. So right now, for my fifth book, I'm torn between something real. I enjoy writing memoirs and facts because I love biographies of real people.
Yeah.
But I really get a kick out of the science fiction that I did for this book. I'm kicking around something on the science fiction side for my fifth book. I have the germ of it. I walk 5 miles every other day, and every time I walk, I put a couple of ideas together.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I'm hoping in the next 2 years to have a new science fiction book come out. That would be exciting. That would be my fifth book.
Can we shift gears now? And
sure.
Don't
you love that? Isn't that the best cartoon you ever saw? Isn't that great?
It's great. And the fact is that this has just simply been part of your life, is meeting high visibility people. And certainly the culture of famous people is as vital and alive as it anywhere in the world as it is in Los Angeles. In the liner notes, well, not even liner notes, but just when you're talking on your website and just sort of setting the book up, and I'll just read it as such. Besides knowing Springsteen in the early 70s, before Bruce was famous, Dan also attended Boston University in the late 70s along with Howard Stern and befriended Jerry Seinfeld in 1981, becoming Jerry's very first fan. That stopped me cold. We now know that Jerry has quite a lot of fans and $1 zillion in the bank and an entire garage on the Upper West Side filled with classic Porsches, among other things, and become an institution in the world of humor and television. How did you meet Jerry Seinfeld, and what was your take on this stand-up comic?
It's such a great question. Okay, so in 1980, before I moved to California, my best friend and I and two women, we were on a double date. We went into Manhattan to, I think it was the Comic Strip Club, Strip Nightclub, I believe it was called.
Yeah, the Comic Strip was a big one.
Yeah, so this would be spring or summer 1980. And we went there on a double date, and Jerry Seinfeld was one of the comics that night, not famous. This is, okay, 1980, Jerry Seinfeld was not famous. And he did routines. I don't remember exactly, but there was one he did something about, I went to the NASA museum the other day, and from Apollo 11, and they have mounted their Neil Armstrong's toothbrush in the NASA museum, and the plaque says on loan from Neil Armstrong. So Jerry goes, Neil, give him the brush, give him the brush. And me and my friends, we were crying into our cocktail. We were crying.
That's great.
And then I remember that joke. And then he did something about, I got some new checks from the bank the other day, and they have little pictures of people skiing and people surfing and people hang gliding. He goes, I don't have any money. He goes, I can't afford to do any of those things. Why are they putting those things on my check? Okay, those are the only two jokes I remember.
Classic humor for him.
Hilarious. Okay. 1 year later, exactly 1 year later, I am now living in LA. I'm a gopher. I am a gopher for a video production company. I'm driving my boss's car to the car wash to get washed and getting him coffee, because that was my job. I'm now 25 years old. I'm a gopher in Hollywood. It's a year later. I drove a BMW, I think it was a BMW, to the Sunset Car Wash on Sunset Boulevard. As it's going through, who's to my left? Jerry Seinfeld with his car. I think it was white. I don't remember what it was. I wish I remembered what his car was, but it was white. And so the car, so me and Jerry, two cars, no one else for miles. And I go, Jerry Seinfeld? He goes, yeah. I go, my name is Dan. And I put out my hand. And I said, I saw you last year in New York. I said, you are so funny. I am your biggest fan.
Aww.
And I swear to God, we shook hands. And he said to me, gee, I didn't know I had any fans. And that's a true story. I didn't know I had any fans. So therefore, I was Jerry Seinfeld's first fan. That's a true story. Now, during that conversation, I said, Jerry, I just got here to LA. You just moved to LA. We're both from the East Coast. I said, can we be friends? I said to him, can we be friends? We're about the same age. We're both from the same place. And we both just got to LA. Well, I don't give out my number. But if you want to get me, here's my manager. So he gave me his manager's card. Okay. So that was the end of that. Nothing happened. That's a side story, but nothing happened. Cut to 12 years later. This is the best part of this story. 12 years later. Now it's 1993. Jerry Seinfeld's the most famous comedian in the world, right?
Yeah.
12 years later after the car wash. He and I are at, do you know what NatP is? The NatP TV convention? It's where they sell TV shows into syndication. I was there as a publicist. Jerry was there promoting his Seinfeld show. 12 years later, exactly. I go up to him, Jerry, yes, my name is Dan. We're shaking hands. I said, I met you in 1981 at the Sunset Car Wash. He pulls his hand out of the handshake. He goes, I remember you. You wanted to be my friend. He turned and walked away. He turned and walked. I wanted to be his friend. He remembered me from 12 years earlier. So anyway, I have a picture of that moment right before he turned and walked away. That's Jerry Seinfeld.
So quirky. There's a distinction in the world of what you do between people that you may meet. They may even remember your name or not. You exchange some business talk or small talk. And other people who are well-known, famous, if you will, who you connect with. Even if you don't become good or lifelong friends, you get a sense of who they are, their character, perhaps some insight into their decency or their superficialness. I don't want to spend any time putting anybody famous down. That's easy enough to do. But I am curious about some of the people in public life who's really have touched your life. And again, there are too many really to list, but some of your list is just absolutely too good to be true. But Tom Hanks to Meryl Streep, Michael Jackson to Sting, Kirk Douglas to Arnold Schwarzenegger, Steven Spielberg, Jerry Springer, Roger Daltrey, Anne Margaret, Jack Black, Sid Caesar, Richie Havens, Gene Simmons, and on down the pantheon. Who comes to mind right now if I asked you somebody who maybe you were a fan of, but meeting them made you a fan of them as a human being, as opposed to just a performer or a singer and actor?
Well, the two, probably I've met hundreds of celebrities on both coasts. The two that I think meant the most to me were meeting Mickey Dolenz in 1986, and then in the years since, I've since met him 5 or 6 times since, and he's Mickey Dolenz was my childhood hero when I was 10 years old. I played, you could see behind me, my electronic drums. I still play the drums.
Let's see.
And that's because of Mickey Dolenz. So when I met him and shook his hand, I was, in my 30s, I was a little boy. I was like, Mickey, I'm Dan. I play the drums my whole life because of you. Thanks, man. I hear that all the time. So that meant the world to me. Meeting Steven Spielberg, 2010, at a Universal Studios press conference. I knew I'd meet him someday. I knew it would happen. Side story, Steven's late mother had a restaurant 2 blocks from my house. 2 blocks from my house. When my mom came in to visit me in LA every year for 30 years, me and my mom would go have lunch with Leah Adler at the Milky Way restaurant 2 blocks from my house. And she would sit with us, we would eat blintzes, and she would tell us about her wonderful son, Steven.
Oh my gosh.
So when I met Steven in 2010, I saw him standing there by himself. I said to myself, okay, what do you say to Steven Spielberg? Here's the list. Schindler's List was a masterpiece. He knows that. E.T. was wonderful. He knows that. Jaws was scary. He knows that. I'm like, you got to say something different. I go up. I go, Steven, my name is Dan. We shook hands. I said, your mother makes the best blintzes I have ever had in my life. And he goes, you're right. My mother makes the best blintzes in the world. And we bonded. And then he posed for a photo with me. I have a picture of me with him together. And then I spent about an hour with him the rest of that afternoon just chit-chatting. That was my approach. So Spielberg and Mickey Dolenz, the kindest, most wonderful celebrity I've ever met in my life is Dee Wallace. Dee Wallace was the star of the movie E.T., the mom in E.T.
Yes.
She is one of my best friends.
Ah.
I met her in 1989. I was the publicist for a TV show called The New Lassie, of all things. The New Lassie, not original Lassie when I was 1 year old. The New Lassie in the late 80s. Dee and I became friendly then. Long story short is at the time my wife was pregnant with my daughter. My wife was extremely, extremely ill with that pregnancy, couldn't get out of bed and couldn't eat or drink anything. And she was on an IV in a hospital bed. I told Dee Wallace the story. Dee said, Dan, I'm going to send an acupuncturist who healed me when I was pregnant. I'm going to send him to your house and he's going to cure your wife. She sent this guy to my house 5 times. She paid for it. My wife got out of bed. She was fine. My daughter came out perfectly healthy. Dee is one of the nicest, kindest women in the world, and she did me a kindness that I could never repay. So she's my favorite person.
That's wonderful. One of my favorite celebrities I've never met, but I got to observe in a unique way, Michael J. Fox. And who doesn't like Michael J. Fox?
Okay.
This is probably 25, 30 years ago when I was working part-time, as I occasionally still do, as a specialty New York City walking tour guide. And at the time worked with a number of high school groups, mostly from the Midwest, who were theater majors coming in to see a play or a musical every night and see the city and, eat at different restaurants. And we had just approached the Museum of Natural History. And on the south side of the museum, there's a big lawn. And it was obvious that they were shooting something there. Trailers were pulled up, the tape was up, cameras were out, tech people were there. And it was at a point where everybody was going to have a free half hour to do what they wanted, then meet back, and then all go out to eat. And at a certain point, there's Michael J. Fox. I'm watching this from several hundred feet away. And several of the people in the group, it happened to be one of the young women who was probably about 17 or 16. And it worked out that her mother and her grandmother were both chaperones. And they came to me and they said collectively, Michael J. Fox is our favorite actor, the three of us. And we're going to go hang out, down by their working. I said, fine, great. And I watched them. And everything I'm about to say, I watched like a silent movie in the distance. But what happened was after a scene had been shot, it was just a wonderful vantage. It was a beautiful day. And as the scene ended, people could talk again. And these 3 women just started to wave frantically at Fox, who's, they're up against the tape line. And he basically just walks over to where they are, stays on his side, and there's an exchange. And he says something to one of the security people who lifts the tape, and these 3 women take off with him and disappear into his trailer. They had to be there, I don't want to exaggerate, 12, 15 minutes, a long time. Finally, the door opens. He comes out with the 3 of them, walk down the stairs. He gives each one a big kiss. They all take pictures with him and then float back to where I'm standing in kind of an ecstatic trance state, each one with a sign glossy, with love from Michael. That's a class act. And I will always remember that as a famous person responding to the people that helped make them famous in the most wonderful way that they could have in that moment. We all know stories about people getting brushed off by well-known people, and probably deservedly sometimes, but not others. Do you observe anything kind of unifying about quote-unquote famous people in film or the music business? Something that they seem to have in common or have developed because they're a well-known person, or that they're as different as the rest of us?
I always get a kick out of meeting anyone famous, whether they're a little famous or extremely famous. It's just I get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, for example, when I met Eric Von Daniken 2 months ago. He's not Bruce Springsteen, but he means a lot to me. And my heart was beating a little fast. I go, Eric, it's such an honor to meet you. I said, thank you so much for what you do and what you've done for us. I said, thank you so much for what you've done for us. And I signed my book to him. My POV is a little different. I do work in Hollywood. Many of these major celebrities I've met have been on red carpets, for charity events or award shows.
Yeah.
I worked some of the Grammys. I've worked many AFI Lifetime Achievement Awards. So, if I'm meeting Tom Hanks or Stallone or Michael Jackson or Kevin Costner, quite often it's as a publicist / industry person / in a Hollywood moment. So of course they're going to be nice. They're going to most people some are going to be rude. Most people on a red carpet can be nice. But for example, we did I think it was Elizabeth Taylor's AFI, and then after the red carpet, I was just hanging around, and I looked to my left, and Kevin Costner standing right next to me, and he and I just had a wonderful conversation. Regular guy, like a normal guy, Kevin Costner, couldn't be nicer, Now we're both in black tuxedos. I'm not asking for his autograph. I guess what I'm saying is most of the people that I've interacted with, it's been in a Hollywood moment, on a film set, on a TV set, or an interview. Great story. I spent a day with Graham Nash, David Crosby, and Grace Slick once.
Oh.
And like a schmuck, I didn't take a picture with them, even though I easily could have. And I didn't, because I'm thinking to myself, who am I to be in a picture with David Crosby, Graham Nash, and Grace Slick? I'm standing next to them. It's my photographer that I'm paying for. And all I had to do was say, hey. But anyway, so I spent a day, Graham Nash, David Crosby. Grace Slick shows up late. I go, Miss Slick, my name is Dan. I'm the publicist. She goes, honey, you tell me what to do. You take me where to go. Take my hand, and whatever you need me to do, honey, I'm all yours. And she puts her hand on my hand. Grace, I'm walking around Grace Slick. And she told me, well, honey, whatever I need, I'm all hers. Grace Slick. And I'm just thrilled. It meant the world to me. So most of my interactions have been wonderful. There is one, I could say it, that was the opposite. And I might as well say it because a lot of people don't like him anyway. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had a very bad interaction with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was at a Friars Club roast for Milton Berle.
Oh.
He was sitting in the audience. My son at the time was the biggest Terminator fan in the world. My son was like 8 years old. And my son loved the Terminator. And I knew Arnold would be there. And I tried to impress my son. So I had a picture of Arnold dressed up as the Terminator and a white marking pen. I came prepared. So during the break, it was a break. People weren't eating. It was a break. And he's sitting there with 2 bodyguards. And he's sitting at a table. And I just walk right up to him. I go, hi, Arnold. My name is Dan. My little son loves the Terminator. Could I possibly get an autograph? It would mean the world to him. So Peter, he looks at me like this. He goes, "Arr, arr," like literally like a wild animal, like he's going to kill me or eat me or both. So I'm standing there. Now I'm there, he's there, and the bodyguards. And I'm like, I could leave or I could commit to my son. I'm going, Arnold, it'll take 10 seconds. If my son is 8 years old, please. Arr, he's like, arr, arr, like steam. And I'm not kidding. Steam shooting out of this guy's head, bright red steam. The bodyguards are hunched over me like, Mr. Schwarzenegger should be throw this guy out of here.
You've upset the boss.
I said, Arnold, please, come on. He has a cold right now. He's not feeling well. Come on, please. I really, please, it would just really mean a lot. So he grabs the pen, grabs the picture. He wrote to Jordan, best wishes, or he wrote, very nice, gave me back the things, and he just kept snarling. He never said a word to me in English, just snarled and steam shooting out of his head. I got the autograph. My son has it framed. but that was unpleasant. That was very unpleasant.
A bad night for him, but that's a little unusual. It sounds a little like the end of the movie where he's on Mars, and I'm blanking on the title.
I love that movie. Yeah. Total Recall.
There you go.
I've seen that movie. It's a great movie.
Right before he explodes. At this point, looking ahead, in general, any plans that you can share with us beyond what we've talked about? We're coming into our last few minutes of the show, and I do want people to know, number one, that they can order your book or books on Amazon, but also to remind folks of your website, which is danharary.author.com. Can that be all lowercase, or do the lead words need to be in caps?
However it's spelled works.
Yeah, it's capital Dan, capital Harary, capital author.com. Do visit the website. So on a closing note.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. It's been really a joy to talk to you. And Earl Grey Anderson sends his regards. Earl has become a good friend of mine. He's the new Southern California MUFON chapter leader. I met him in March. I met him in March at Alien Con. I'm going to speak at his MUFON event in June here in LA. Right. And he speaks so highly of you, and that's how I met you, was through Earl.
I pay him to say nice things about me. It's a little like what you do.
He's a great guy. He's a very sweet guy. So After They Came is on Amazon, Kindle or paperback. My first book, Flirting with Fame, it's also on Amazon. That one has an audio version as well. If you're a sexually open-minded person, you could get my book, Carrots. And it's very explicit, but with a purpose. And I discuss how I lived through sex addiction, which was an overwhelming thing for me, and I spent a lot of money on that. And until I came out on the other side as a calmer, gentler, nicer person. My next book, My Paranormal Life, January 2024. As I said, I am thinking about my next sci-fi book. I think the working title is Five, F-I-V-E, the number 5. And I just think it's a great title. And I'm trying to figure out what goes behind the title of that book.
Well, that worked out last time. Dan, thanks so much for joining me. And you are a little bit psychic. You probably know that because next week's guest, along with Chanel Shantz, who is the granddaughter of Kenneth Arnold, the man whose UFO sighting kicked everything off. My other guest next week will be Earl Grey Anderson, the aforementioned, who's also good friends with Chanel, and he will be hosting a good part of the second half of the show. If you've enjoyed this show, please tell your friends. We will be returning next Monday, same time, same station. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other like the aliens in After They Came. See you next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.